Ooh, put my mask on. Really?
I'd do it just for her. The clerk will call the roll.
Lynn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Lloyd Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Dickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by our own Wesley McDuffie, excuse me. I think I'd know by now. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
BOG.
Good morning, BOG.
Good morning. Let us pray. Father, we'd just like to thank you today for allowing us to rise to see another day. We realize it wasn't promised to us, but your grace rolled on one more time. Lord, I ask your prayers and your blessings upon this county. Father, that you'll continue to enable us to do the things that you prepared for us. Father, that we will continue to be the county that you would like for us to be. Father, and that we'll be the leader in everything above and beyond every call of duty. Thank you for giving us the wisdom and the knowledge, providing us the experience and the wisdom to go along with it. Now, Lord, we just pray that everything we do today will be pleasing in your sight. And Lord, that you will get all of the glory from it. Bless our constituents and all of our law enforcement throughout this land and country, as this is still Police Week in spite of pandemic. But Lord, bless them as they serve and protect. It's in Jesus' name I pray and ask it all. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain.
Sorry, sir.
Mr. Manius. Few, several, or none?
We have one or more announcements as it relates to the agenda this morning.
One or more?
One or more, yes.
Okay then.
That should pretty much cover the
That'll
spectrum.
cover it.
So, members of the court, we do have a revised court communication that's already been added to your electronic court book, and Commissioner Johnson, you've received it also. This deals with public health. It's item G2. It's a consent item, and as I said, it's revised. The revision was a slight modification in the scope. Also, members of the court, we have added some additional information to your red folders and probably in your electronic folders also this morning. When it comes to the administrator section, item A1, this once again is a discussion concerning the coronavirus issue. I would like to mention that we have scheduled for next week 2 items that deal with this particular topic. One is the county's health and safety policy. We will be sending you a revision to that to make sure that we incorporate those items that have been delineated in the CDC guidance as far as masking. And then second of all, also next week we're going to be discussing with the court the extension of the declaration of emergency or disaster and how we're going to move forward as it relates to that. Those 2 items will be action items for next week. Also, members of the court, we're going to take, as we have in the past, take several items out of order. Once we get to the administrator section, we're going to go into the briefing items. We have the City of White settlement tax, a TIF reinvestment zone that we'd like to discuss with the court. We're then going to follow that with the hospital district's monthly update to the Commissioner's Court. Once we get past that, we'll then move to the administrator section, and we'll include Mr. Tenaja's and Ms. Camarano's reports in that particular item. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of May the 11th.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Allen?
Yes, I do have a proclamation recognizing Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so the month of May in 1843 marks the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants to the United States. And May 10 of 1869 marks the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railway, which was laid by a majority of Chinese immigrant workforce. And so in the recognition of the contributions of the Asian American and Pacific Islanders community, there will be a community celebration at Asia Times Square in Grand Prairie this weekend. This is the inaugural Nesian Festival. So I won't read the remainder of this resolution, proclamation into the record. I will move for its approval, and I will be presenting it on Saturday.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I just would like to announce, and if you haven't had an opportunity to go by and look at it, we did unveil the Law Enforcement Memorial this past Friday. It is a beautiful, I think, memorial, and it's been well overdue. I would again like to thank Commissioner Johnson for his persistence in moving it forward, as well as our Criminal District Attorney, Sharon Wilson. It was a great celebration. It was a beautiful day. And if you haven't had a chance to go by and look at it, do that. We will also continue to do a little work on that, and we'll have some more, hopefully some more information and some more things to highlight come October. But again, thank you, Commissioner Johnson, and everybody for that and for the help in making that occur. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. We can now go to the briefing section and consider item 11A. This is the county's participation with the City of White Settlement Tax Increment Financing Reinvestment Zone Number 1. The South is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Megan.
So the City of White Settlement has established a 773-acre tax increment financing reinvestment zone surrounding White Settlement Road, Cherry Lane, and I-30 frontage. The TERS was established to primarily facilitate the revitalization of the downtown area along White Settlement Road, new development across I-30 frontage, and redevelopment along the Cherry Lane commercial corridor. It is expected to raise the taxable value within the zone from its current value of $220 million to over $790 million over the 30-year life of the zone. And today we have Kirk McDaniel from Petty & Associates, and then also Jeff James, the city manager from White Settlement, who are here to give you an overview of their plans for the White Settlement TERS. So I'm going to go ahead and ask them to come up and turn it over to them.
Just kind of looking around the room for the bald-headed Mr. Petty.
He's not here today, unfortunately.
Well, I didn't see the shine, so I was
He's in
the glare.
Weatherford.
He's in Weatherford.
That's what he told me.
Yes. Can I take this off here?
Yes, you
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your time today, Judge and Commissioners. A little bit taller. Thank you for your time today. My name is Kirk McDaniel with Petty & Associates, and also with us is City Manager of White Settlement, Jeff James, and we're here today regarding the request of the city for Tarrant County to participate in the TERS at 50%. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the origins of the TERS, the financials, and then the specific projects involved with it. So regarding the creation of the TERS, the city reached out to us and really desired a new economic development strategy. And so we, P&A led some workshops and lots of conversations and involvement with city staff, with representatives of the community, with the city council, with the elected boards, to really develop a strong list of priorities for the city. The two primary ones I want to focus on are renovating public infrastructure and the revitalization of blighted areas. Each of these are very important aspects, and a TERS is a clear mechanism to help fix the problems or achieve those priorities. And so one of the principal conclusions of the strategic plan that we put together was recommending the creation of the city's first TERS. So the city aggressively pursued this, and we approved the plan, the strategic plan, in September of 2020, and we created the TERS in October of 2020, and then we approved a final plan just recently in February. So on this next slide, you can see the boundary of the first TERS, or of TERS number 1, primarily going along White Settlement Road, and then Cherry Lane is the north-south road on the east side. We went ahead and picked up the industrial district because there's some potential for redevelopment in the future, as well as the I-30 frontage road, a lot of which is undeveloped or underdeveloped, and we see that as a prime opportunity in the future over the term of the zone. And so the city wanted to be proactive in setting up the boundaries now and creating the mechanisms to help fund improvements to those areas. And so you can see on the next slide, this is the future land use plan. And if you kind of go back and forth between these two, you can tell that we put the TERS over the commercial corridors of the city and also the industrial corridor in that northeast section. And kind of as I said earlier, the real priority of the TERS was to help generate new development and redevelopment within the city and creating an actual dedicated funding mechanism for those improvements. And so for the actual feasibility study that we put together, we created a mock site plan of future development that could occur due to the TERS, and then we put together very conservative value increases, including no growth for a couple of years each decade to simulate an economic downturn or something like COVID, because you never know what's going to happen. With all that said, we still project an incremental value of $570 million, so a significant increase in values over the life of the TERS, which would generate a significant amount of revenue for the city and for the county. On this next slide, this is kind of the basis or some of our assumptions for the feasibility study. The city is going to participate in the TERS at 50%, and the request of the county is that the county also participate at 50%. And should the county agree to that request, we plan to present to the college district as well and request that they participate at 50% as well.
What's your tax rate? What's the city's tax rate right now?
Jeff? I believe it's in the 70 cents. I don't have that specific number. I apologize. 73 cents. On this next slide, this shows the comparison of the revenue. This is a comparison of the revenue versus if the TERS did occur versus if it did not occur. And so it shows the value increases of that annual revenue. Essentially, the counties would get more net revenue over the life if there is a TERS than if there was not a TERS, is what this slide is trying to show. And I think I really like this next slide, which shows the base revenue that will continue to go to the county, and then it mirrors that incremental growth that we showed earlier, but splits out that revenue between the county and their contribution to the TERS. So you can see that very clearly there. Cumulatively over the term of the zone, the city would contribute $37 million and the county would contribute $11 million, and they would also retain half of that as well. Then specifically on the projects, the city did a great job of identifying very important projects to actualize the vision of the city council and the community. There's about $41 million worth of different projects included in here. Most of which, a little bit less than half, is going towards roadway expansions. And I have on this next slide, these are the primary roadway expansions that we're discussing. Those dashed orange lines are roads that have not been built yet, but are included in the TERS so that the TERS could fund those improvements and help increase the connectivity of the city. Because as new development occurs along I-30, that Western Hills Boulevard is going to become very crucial to the overall city. Because right now, that's pretty undeveloped, and as more development comes, it's going to become critical that Western Hills is able to connect to Spur 341. And so that's why we included those various roads there. So if the commissioners...
Go
Yes,
back
sir.
for just 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Were any of those projects submitted in the recent transportation bond project request?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you.
So if the Commissioners Court has any other questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
I move for approval.
So we are not agendized, so this is just
No.
simply a briefing at this time.
Okay.
Are you asking for any action?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So if there aren't any objections to that, we will move forward and we'll work with them to bring back a tax increment reinvestment zone participation agreement in the near future for your approval.
It looks good.
Thank you.
So members of the court, if we can now go to, again, to the briefing agenda and ask Mr. Early to come forward and present the hospital district's monthly report to the Commissioners Court.
Thank you, Mr. Maynes. Thank you, Your Honor, Commissioners. It's great to see you all again. Good morning, Commissioner Johnson. I wanted to start by giving you all a bit of a briefing. And when I first started doing these briefings, I did not wear cheaters. I am now wearing them, which is a statement of age.
Is that glasses?
They're glasses. A couple things. I wanted to give you all an update on our COVID population, where we are with vaccinations, and also suggest to you all that we'll continue those daily briefings that I give you, but maybe we'll do that at the beginning and the end of the week. That may be a little more profitable. Those numbers are not changing all that much. Today, we're scheduled for 260 vaccines. Yesterday, we provided 221 vaccines. So obviously, the number of people being vaccinated is going to be less, but the core of who we're vaccinating is our employees, their families, and at some point, obviously, that's going to be a number that's going to decrease naturally, but a lot of people have been vaccinated. In fact, JPS, and I'm proud of this, has provided 88,427 vaccines since the start of vaccination process. And the fact that you're an active working hospital with active working clinics and you're still doing that, I think is a testimony to the team at JPS. We're pulling people off bedside to provide the vaccines and to give the necessary time period of wait afterwards. So I'm proud of the team for doing that. Today, we have 23 positive COVID patients inside the hospital. That number has been fairly steady for the last month and a half, ranging from as low one day at 14 and as high as 25 during that time period. I'll remind you that our highs were in the 200s in the real challenges of COVID when we were witnessing that. To the employees at JPS, there is no, and I think all of us need to realize, there's not going to be like cottage cheese on the shelf, an end date to COVID. It's not going to say, well, great, September 10th is here, COVID is over. I think it will allow us the process to cope with COVID, to allow more people to be vaccinated, to continue to be masked where needed to be. We are still masking at the hospital district. That's a challenging area, so we still wear our masks. But I think it's a process by which we're going to have to deal with COVID in our life, not the fact that we're going to have a celebration that, ta-da, it's over. And that's a challenging process. I'm not a physician, so I don't want to lead to that, but I want to tell you that I don't think there's a necessary ending date that we're all looking towards. So our numbers have been good. I wanted to now switch gears, and I'm available for questions at the end of this on anything that you all have, but I wanted to switch gears to Commissioner Allen's request, and a good request that it is, that when I do come before you, I give you an update on where we are with Broadus and where we are with the bond package. As I mentioned last week, we heard loud and clear y'all's concerns, and they're the concerns of a partner. They're the concerns of a commissioner's court that has an obligation to a voting population that says, where are we and where should we be? I think we need to make sure that we're communicating with you all best as possible so that you are in that loop. A couple months ago, I suggested that we create appointees from the court, whoever you all decide, to come down to JPS or to come here and get monthly briefings on where we are, where the project development is, where those projects are, where the plans, where the diagrams are, even more detail than what we give in a briefing. Also, I've talked to the staff, a lot of the staff at JPS miss Mr. Manius a lot. We don't think he comes to JPS enough. So we would like to have JPS see more of Mr. Manius, and we'd like for him to be in numerous briefings at JPS for this very reason.
He needs something to do. He's had a lot of time.
Yeah, we appreciate you. We love you very much, and we really want to see more of you. And I love that face you have on right now.
What fiscal year are you talking about?
We're going to start this tomorrow, and we want to see you as quickly as possible. And what we want to do is be able to provide you all with the needed updates and the needed information that you have. In addition to that, I know that Commissioner Allen has said, I've got an active group that I want to keep informed in my precinct. We in Broadus will be happy to do that. The one thing that we would ask is that, and you're going to hear more of this because we're a partnership with Broadus. Broadus was our choice and choice for a reason. We believe in Broadus. We believe in their skill set. We believe in what they can do. And we believe in the working relationship we have with them, and it's been good. So what we would like to do is any briefing that you would have on behalf of Precinct 2 and the citizens that you have is that Broadus and JPS come out to do that. We would offer that same opportunity for any of you in your precincts that you would want that. If you want us to come and meet with citizens and talk about those activities and those interests, JPS and Broadus would be happy to do that. So whatever that fits for your schedule, fits for your citizens, we're happy to do that along with Broadus. Two things before yes, Commissioner.
I was going to say we have a date. So
good.
We'll
Okay.
be letting your office know.
Thank you. Happy to have a date.
And my comment, Robert, is that you heap praise upon the relationship with Broadus, but that praise is not reflected in the contract that you have brought forward to the Commissioner's Court to approve with Broadus. I don't understand your reluctance to commit the entirety of the relationship with Broadus to writing. It does not make sense to me that y'all want to amend the contract with Broadus each time a project comes along. That to me is stupid. It makes no sense. The relationship that this Commissioner's Court approved and that the Board of Managers approved with Broadus was that they should be the program management firm, that everything should flow through them. That is not reflected in the contract that you have brought forward. And it makes me suspicious of the motives of the administration of Tarrant County Hospital District, headed by you, sir, when you refuse to commit that relationship to writing. I want to see a comprehensive contract with Broadus that comports with the agreements that were adopted by this court and by your Board of Managers, describing what that relationship should be, and by the RFP to which Broadus responded and won the contract. Their contract should reflect what they bid upon and what we approved and what your Board of Managers approved. And I don't understand why that's so difficult to do. I don't understand the claims that it would delay the process. All of that is BS. It does not take any more time to commit to writing the agreement than it does to piecemeal it out to us and to Broadus levies. And I want to see a complete contract.
Commissioner, I'm gonna at least make the comment that I don't mind having a complete contract as long as we can get out of it at any point in time we want to get out of it.
Every contract we write and agree to has an out clause.
And I think to that end, then if we're doing it piecemeal, this bond issue is going to be something that I feel like the county is going to be building on for over 10 years. And so I don't have the same strong feelings that you do about us starting off on a piecemeal. I just want to get it started. And I believe that we have talked among ourselves about the fact that the mental health portion of the deal and the medical homes are important, and I would rather see us get started on that. I mean, I think they are the ones that wanted Broadus. If anything, we were looking at the possibility of doing other things than Broadus. And so I'm not, and we heard their facilities person last week make some assurances, and you know, I don't want to get into a debate that slows us down because we're now talking about we're going to have a well, Roy, now you can shake your head, but I see nothing that causes us not to go forward as we're going right now.
We are going forward, and it would not have taken any more time to draw a proper contract.
I don't think, I'll disagree with your description as to a proper contract versus the one we got. Their board approved it. It still picks the person and the firm that we wanted and that we as a group selected. We will have to approve anything that changes in the future. I just want the contract to be signed and move forward, and I don't care about waiting until he brings something else back.
I have not asked for anything to stop. I have not asked for anybody to wait. I have merely asked that he produce the contract that memorializes the agreements that we have all made.
We approved a contract last week, and I'm satisfied with that contract going forward, and I, am not interested in another contract at this point in time.
Here's my humble opinion. And first of all, I want to allay any suspicions you have. I don't think that anything is improper in any way. You have 5 people that stand before me, 11 members of a board that have 2 things in clear focus: patients and taxpayers. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that at every turn. And we're always going to do that. And we will move forward. In regards to any part of the contract that's been severed or changed, the authority clearly lies with the court, and our board realizes it and appreciates that because we like the working relationship we have with this court. I'd take it over any of the 254 other counties, 253 counties in this state. So I think we're in a good place, and I think it will move forward, and it will move forward well. In regards to mental health, which is the nucleus by which JPS wants to move forward and the community wants to see movement. In regards to the authority that helps us with mental health, if we have a source that we think is different, and that's where part of this came from, is JPS's interest as a board looking at somebody that we had a working relationship with and has had a very successful time at JPS and has a national reputation of doing what's right in Meadows. If we wanted to split out Meadows, which is not the interest to split out every different portion of that contract to do, that's illogical and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and we wouldn't do that. That Meadows contract, for what we want to do, is the rightful ownership of this court, and you should approve that contract or not approve that contract and let us move forward.
We were not given an opportunity to
Well,
approve
you
that contract.
well, you do have an opportunity based on your policies. You don't have a lack of opportunity. It is totally your area of support. and strength. So that contract can't go forward, I don't think, unless you approve that contract.
The Commissioners Court has a court order that created a policy as to what contracts needed to come forward from the hospital district. And the tipping point is $250,000. And this contract is a $700,000 contract. It simply needs to come to court for approval, just like we've approved everything else. But we talked about that last week also. And so we're going to, we've talked a little bit about it, and we'll schedule this thing to come up to court next Tuesday.
And there isn't a board member that has a problem with that at all. And that moves us forward in a direction. If this court says, we don't think that's the right group, we want another group, that authority lies with this court. And that can and should be your decision. And
in
again,
the contract that we're talking about coming up next week, what's the out? If we decide all of a sudden that we want to change, what's the out?
I haven't seen the contract.
I couldn't tell you the out, but there is an out. We haven't had a contract that doesn't have a 30-day out
They have let a
clause.
contract, it is ongoing, and we haven't seen it.
Well,
That's my only problem.
You bet. Well, and I think that problem gets allayed very quickly because I'm happy to have it, and Mr. Manius and I talked about that. If that comes before the court and you all approve or don't approve of that division of the contract, that's fine. That's y'all's decision, and there's not a board member that has a problem with that at all. In the meantime, I think the project is moving forward. I think we are doing the right things, and what I'd like to do at this point is, and I'll come back up for any other additional questions that you have, is I'd like Derek Walls to come up and give you an explanation of the working relationship thus far. And he represents Broadus Levis at today's meeting, and Derek is at JPS pretty much every day of his life. So I want Derek to come up and give you an idea just so you and those live streaming can listen to see where this process is so you have a clear picture. So Derek, if you don't mind, if you'd come forward.
I almost didn't recognize you because you didn't have your 817 mask on.
I need to wear that. It's kind of a calling card. Even at JPS, they said, I think I see you at the court all the time. Thank you, Judge and Commissioners. So what I'd like to do is address a couple of things that were just mentioned and then give you an update to assure you that the Broadus Levis team has started on this project, has been working on the project. Just to give you a very brief update, I think you may have a handout that shows you some of the things that we have been working on. We've heard loud and clear about the projects, the priority of projects. The Broadus Levis team, as you know, is a large team. This is a huge project, so it requires a lot of expertise. So we've got Guidehouse, we have Price Waterhouse, Buxton, and a host of other and our team members working on this project already. We're teaming with JPS at the right department levels to gather a lot of data. This project requires a lot of upfront information. So we've been doing that. We've had ongoing meetings, typically at least one or two a week. And as Robert said, I'm there pretty much every day. Our office is about less than a half a mile from JPS and about a 5-minute ride away. And so I'm there a lot, and not just me, but a lot of our team members. So in behavioral health, that's a project that has been underway, started. There's some enabling projects that they don't get a lot of flash, but they're very important. Parking is critical, as you know, at JPS. So where the behavioral health PEC, the Psychiatric Emergency Center, and the new tower be located, it's going to displace parking, a fair amount of parking, about 190 spaces. So we have, JPS has been working on a project to relocate what's at the Hemp Hill building for behavioral assessment to Terrell Street. That was their old cancer center. That's moving forward. That building on Hemp Hill will come down and provide parking, which is right adjacent to where the new PEC is going to go. So we have that and some other enabling projects with parking. So we will see dirt moving. It just won't see a building coming up just yet. But we've got that started, and that's been underway, working with the behavioral health team. We went through a process to send RFQ out for architect. We went through that selection process with the team. Architect was selected, and is on board to move forward with that. The key planning units are critical, knowing what's going to go into that PEC, how many emergency beds, how many observation beds, and what other services. So that's the kind of work that's going on right now with the behavioral health mental homes. That work has already started. The big question there is where, how big. And so Buxton has been involved with JPS for quite some time in helping with selecting sites, as well as the planning effort that goes in, knowing that each one of these medical homes has unique characteristics to it, what services. So that process is beginning with internal staff, and then we'll be reaching out to the community for their input as well. So that is started, and we'll be moving along. We'll acquire architect. We'll go through, again, the design, the bid, and moving dirt process, but it takes a little bit of time to get there to go through that planning effort. So that's the medical homes. Parking is huge. Planning a 2,600 car parking garage. We've got that underway as well, the planning effort for that. Again, not one of those real exciting.
How many cars did you say, Derek?
How many?
How many cars?
2,600.
2,600.
Yes, large parking garage. So again, we'll have some enabling work because we're going to have to take up a surface lot parking to build that parking garage. So that work, along with the traffic study, geotech reports, those things take a little bit of time, but those have already started as well. And then just the next steps is really communication, and that's something that we have Case Strategies is on our team. I think most people know Case Strategies. This is part of what they do besides their Hub NWBE program is communication. So they're going to help us with that communication effort and coming back to the JPS board for their planning committees, steering committees, executive committees, and then ultimately their board, and then to you, the commissioners. So that communication effort and how we're planning that work has started as well. To address where we are with the contract, we understand it's a phase one contract, and that's the way the original RFP was set up, phase one, phase two. Phase one's planning, and then implementations after that. So we are ready, and we have been working on phase one, knowing that that will be amended. Probably I'll take some responsibility in that, we got pretty excited about getting started, as Robert has mentioned to you. I'm there a lot, have been there for the last 15 plus years, knowing how important these projects are. So we really kind of got started on that, and need to focus more on getting the amendment part of the contract finished up. We have the planning committee coming up in a couple of weeks where this will be on the agenda for that, to get that amendment the way it should be. Bottom line, we're excited and we're moving forward, and just very proud to be working for you in the county and working with JPS. And I think the work that we've been doing so far, if you can participate in some of those meetings, you can see it's a great working relationship between our team members and what we've been doing with JPS so far.
Thank you, Derek. I'm not sure if this question is for you or for Robert, but when I go to the yes2jps.org website, there's not much of an update, and there has been substantial enough activity that something more should be on there than what's on there. So.
I agree, and that's part of our team. We talked to you in a presentation back when we presented was, and I think I even used the example of what Vinny presents to you in more of a dashboard. So it's not just quick and easy to look at, but you're going to see positive things. There may be some things about schedule and budget, but we want to provide that dashboard so that it is access for the community to go look at and view so they can stay up to speed, and then to give you the ability to take a deeper dive as commissioners and the board. And we're just getting that ramped up and getting that ready, but that's something that we need to be providing to JPS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you all. I want to, I'm happy to answer any questions on any of that. I also want to end with a comment that Randy made to me earlier. When the chaplain made a comment about our police force and the security units that we have out through Tarrant County, I think many of us, when we come to work, may not consider the fact of how many people that are in this room making sure that our security is there, how many people on the street make sure that our security is there. And one of the things that makes me proud of JPS, one of the many things that makes me proud of JPS, is we're there to take care of those security folks when they run into trouble. And JPS has had a couple of cases in the last month that restore your faith in what you can do to help people get back to their workplace and get back to their life and get back to their families. And it is every day awe-inspiring when you get to work in a facility that takes an individual that is there to protect my life and to protect your life and put themselves in harm's way just to protect me, and then you get to be on the other end of that side at JPS and help them. And those are powerful and very powerful moments. So, Randy, I thank you for reminding the team at JPS what they do on a daily basis to help individuals, not only those that are providing us security, but the individual that finds themselves in a traumatic situation where no one expected to be the victim of a T-bone accident at a four-way stop or a stroke or a heart attack. And it is pretty awe-inspiring to be with that group of people. So, Commissioners, I thank you, and I will continue to work with you not only on bond, but all the other activities that we have, because it is not only a good working relationship, but this Commissioner Court, I don't think there's any better. I haven't worked with all 254, and I haven't met the folks in Loving County, all 300 of them, but I will tell you that...
that's way too many. They only got about 100 and something.
I know, they've been declining.
On election years, they have 300.
I know that... I have a lot of commissioners that know everybody out there because they're all related. But nonetheless, I want to thank you all for the relationship that we do have, and I am appreciative of it. And Mr. Manius, thank you. We look forward to whatever you all decide in appointments coming from this court to come down to get your monthly briefings, and we can make those more than monthly briefings, and then they'll be much more detailed, and happy to have those, and we look forward to them.
And okay, I got to ask quick, because I'm having a senior moment. I went back and looked. What did we do on May the 4th when we said that we approved a program management services agreement between Tarrant County and Broadus, JPS and Broadus? Was that not what we're talking about? You made the motion, you seconded it, and it approved, and it passed 5-0. So was that not this agreement?
I believe that the contract that we agreed, or that the court approved at that time, was not the overarching contract that Commissioner Brooks has pointed out. It was the first phase of the planning contract. We talked at that time about the fact that the mental health issue that we had Meadows was being selected, and that we were going to have to come back and deal with the Meadows contract. So we approved.
Well, I know we talked about coming back and dealing with the Meadows contract.
The agreement that we agreed to is not the full overarching agreement. It was just for this first phase.
But we have an agreement that we have passed
Commissioners,
at this point in time.
We agreed to that, and that's what this court, that's what we said. We have agreed to the initial agreement. The agreement that was in the RFP was something that did not include Meadows. It had a different...
And I understand the discussion about Meadows. But again, I'm not sure I feel like, if what we're bringing back is the discussion about Meadows, I don't disagree with that.
That's what we need to...
But if we're talking about coming back and redoing an umbrella for a whole long period of time just between JPS and Broadus, I'm not sure that...
Our intent was to bring the Meadows contract back.
Okay, the Meadows contract.
Because the Meadows contract is not in effect yet. It can't be, because our policy requires that anything above $250,000 that deals with a construction project, which is planning, has to be approved by the Commissioners Court in order for it to be effective.
There's planning and there's implementation, to Commissioner Brooks' point, which I agree with Commissioner Brooks, which, and Derek mentioned that, is that we need to continue to work on the amendment to that to get a fuller agreement. So we're not there yet.
As far as mental health, as far as Meadows goes, I don't disagree. But as far as project management and the project management services agreement, in my opinion, we are there with that.
For planning.
Well, that's,
You-
from a planning standpoint, that's what we've said all along, that as we get into the construction part of it, yes, we've said that Broadus would also do the project management. But I'm just saying, 2 weeks ago, we passed an agreement and a contract.
For planning.
That was for phase one.
You can try to paint me as the villain of this piece all you want to. All I'm asking for is an agreement that comports with the strategy that this court and the Board of Managers agreed to long ago.
And I'm not trying to paint you or point anything toward you. I'm simply saying that at this point in time, I think we have something to go forward with.
Which is incomplete and does not memorialize the totality of the agreements that we had.
Okay. We may just agree to disagree at this point in time.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, one other question. With regards to your vaccines that you're giving, you mentioned that your employees were bringing the families in. So I guess you're also giving them the children's vaccine. Do you have the Pfizer vaccine that you're giving to the children that may be coming in, or are you
We
doing
do,
that
but
at your clinics?
I need to check and see how many, if any, we have given to children at this point. I don't believe we've given any children vaccines at this point, and I need to go back and check, and I'll let your office and the whole court know so that I know exactly where we are with children.
Okay.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Robert.
You bet. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go to the administrator section, and we're going to take up item A1, and we'll have various presentations as relates to that particular item. But for very briefly to do an overview of what we're going to see on one, Ms. Sal.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
So I will be brief this morning. I just do want to touch on a few topics. So one of those topics falls underneath the pillars and is related to the permanent testing locations, which I know I've been updating you all on weekly. So emergency management has been in discussions with TDOM for the last week or so. TDOM has been reviewing those permanent testing locations to determine whether or not to shut them all down. And we have made a recommendation, and our ask would be to keep those locations open for at least another month, so that we can see, masks are kind of starting to come off, and we just want to see what the numbers look like before we shut those down. We can always look at reopening them, but Jessica Mason will be sending y'all out weekly updates as she has been doing.
So then, before you move on from
Yes,
that, so
ma'am.
then the two test sites that remain open are, will you remind me again?
It was the JPS location, we moved from NRH 20, and then I believe it's,
TCC Southeast.
yes, you're correct. Yes, ma'am. And if we have to make a recommendation to shut one down, I think if we got to keep one open and shut one down, I think we would recommend that the northeast site be the one that we shut down. So Kristen's here, and she's going to provide a detailed update this morning on the ERAP program for all of you, so I won't go into any of that information. I'll let her discuss all of that. Moving on to the vaccination update slide. So as you all know, our partners, us and our partners, are continuing to push the vaccination efforts at the various locations. The new drive-through vaccination site operated by Curative that opened last week in White Settlement at the Splash Days, that site vaccinated 328 individuals during its first week, which it wasn't a full week. It was only open, I believe, for 4 days. But staff at that location have said that the appointments are steady throughout the day, and they've been happy with the way that things are going out there. UNT is not here today to give their usual update. They will be here next week, but I did want to make a note about them. The Stop 6 and the Saginaw locations are starting to wind down, and over the next several weeks, we anticipate that those sites will probably be shut down as they move into more of a mobile pop-up vaccine model. So I believe that next week they'll give you a full update on what their plans are for future sites.
And the reason that they're not here today is simply because they were going to have some data that they were going to be able to collect this week. And so we just set them off 1 week so that you would have a more full report from them next week.
And then, like I've been reporting on week to week, the call center data, again, it's still dropping. Every single week it goes down by a little more than 1,000 or so calls. So for the first week of May, it was down to a little less than 6,000 calls for this last week, which is almost a 66% decrease in calls over the last 3 weeks.
Megan, are y'all kind of following and looking at, you talked about the call, so let's do a cost per call based upon the people we have and what we're funding and seeing if we can cut back. The same thing with the vaccines, maybe with curative. And this is all kind of brought to mind by the discussion at one point we had, I believe, about transportation and how much we were paying.
So there is a clause within that contract that talks about, based off of X amount of calls, we're paying so many cents or so many dollars per call. So we'll look at that and reevaluate, because I actually think it goes up as we get less calls. So we have talked to public health. We are speaking with them probably more than once or twice a week about this specific contract. So we're monitoring it.
And then I don't know that we've got that same alternative with the vaccines, but because of the fact that they're coming to a location, but we might very well be able to talk with a pharmacy about the fact that, okay, if we get to a certain level, as opposed to paying Curative or Optum or whoever, what amounts to be a whole lot more per shot than what if we said, okay, we're going to work a deal with Tom Thumbs or with most folks about giving the shots at their location.
I understand where you're going to. It's on Curative. We actually are not paying them anything on that. They are billing the federal government for their services.
Okay.
And we are beginning to have conversations with UNT that will, once we have ours with them, we'll obviously bring it to the court. The fixed sites, there's not a lot of people coming to them anymore. So we're doing more of these pop-up sites, and we've moved from a strategy of mega sites to more mobile, to smaller sites now, more mobile sites, and that's a different mix. And so,
well, I believe, and when Vinny gets up here, we can ask him more about that, but I believe there has been some interest in some of the calls about pop-up sites and at least looking at that as a possibility.
And Vinny will talk about that when he gets up.
And again, there's no significant changes on the grant or the spend update this week, so I won't go into detail, but I'll be happy to answer any other questions. If not, that's all that I have for today.
If there's no questions, we're now going to go ahead and ask Mr. Tenasia to come up and give his emerging health issues report.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court.
Morning.
So let me actually start by addressing that point about the pop-up locations. So those requests have been coming, and public health and a whole host of partners are actually addressing those. Some are coming from school districts, some are coming from private schools, businesses, different locations. So currently, our public health team is addressing some. We got City of Fort Worth as a partner addressing some. City of Arlington Fire Department is addressing some of those. We've reached out to other, like Grapevine and Hearst Fire Department, to work on one. I spoke with Grand Prairie this morning to see if they could help with one. So there's a variety of different partners that are willing to help. MedStar has been addressing quite a few for us. So it's been going great, and the requests are building and coming. So the model is definitely shifting away from these fixed mega sites to more pop-up events. One event I want to highlight is tomorrow. It's the African American Health Expo. We've been partners with them for years. This time around, the specifics are that we're bringing COVID vaccine. So we're excited that we're able to do that. And again, I'll ask y'all's help. If you can promote that event, that there's free vaccine available, we'd love to have a good showing. We did do a pop-up yesterday. I think it ended up in Lake Worth. 12 people showed. So, it happens. Most other events are more successful than that, but, we want to make sure that every opportunity we get, we have enough people show up and get the vaccine that they need. So that's the coverage on pop-up events, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I would just ask that you give us enough notice, maybe a week or two notice prior to a pop-up venue, so that we can help spread the word.
Yes, sir.
And help attract a crowd.
I will try as much advance notice we can. Sometimes we don't have 2 weeks notice in advance either, but we will get you the earliest possible. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem.
So, Vinny, I think since we're talking about pop-ups and sites and everything, we might want to mention the downtown plaza.
Oh, yes, sir. So Mr. Manius and I did visit, and I think Commissioner Brooks was there actually as well, the Sundance Square. We had a conversation with them to look at a pop-up location at the pavilion. And currently it's early in conversation. My team's going to make a visit to make sure everything's in order on what we need. But tentatively, we're going to try and start a 1-day-a-week pop-up there, hopefully the Friday, the 28th. And the goal is currently start on Fridays because that seems to be the heaviest day of foot traffic in the area. And then as the traffic grows and demand is there, we can then expand the number of days there. So again, variety of things happening. And it also reminded me, there was some feedback, I think, Judge, from your office about the pop-up clinic sign-up being only on the COVID shot page and not being very obvious. So we've rectified that. It's now very highlighted on the top on the vaccine finder page, and also available on the coronavirus dashboard page as a button to request a pop-up clinic. So it's in several locations.
Vinny, do you have any plans for in-home program? I know we have a number of Meals on Wheels. We have a specific Meals on Wheels group in our area, and they're having a lot of issues with some of their clients not being, they're not mobile enough to get out.
Yes, sir. So that program's been active for a while. There's a different group. We've been working with Carla Judson and that Meals on Wheels group. I didn't know if there was a separate one, but we'd be happy to partner with them.
There's a Metroport Meals on Wheels. Have you worked with them? You probably work with Tarrant.
Yes, Tarrant. Yeah, Meals on Wheels. That is correct.
This is a group that's focused more on Northeast.
Okay.
Primarily Keller, Roanoke. Well, Roanoke's in Denton County, but Keller and Westlake.
Well, we're happy to work with them. Just connect us, and we have a program ongoing. Currently, what we did was there was a need for Johnson & Johnson vaccine, so we were able to work with the City of Fort Worth, and they were able to get some Johnson & Johnson and address about close to 400 people that were homebound on that Meals on Wheels list.
Okay.
But if there's more, we're happy to work either through our teams. I know that a lot of the Northeast fire departments are happy to do that as well. Okay.
If you do the square, is that going to be Johnson & Johnson, or is it going to be Pfizer, a combination?
A combination. So for the smaller sites, we're trying to take at least 2, if not 3 choices, because sometimes people just say, oh, I need my second dose. Can I get it done here? And we're trying not to say no to anybody.
And certainly, y'all are probably one of the few locations, because it's going to have to be because of the storage, that can take the Pfizer.
Yes, that is correct.
For the kids, in case the kids show up from that standpoint. And then if you can use the Johnson & Johnson on their parents, then you don't set them on 2 different schedules to get their second shots.
That is correct. Yes, sir. So we'll work through all the logistics. We're talking to the Square to see if they can promote in any way, attract that age group to come, maybe out to eat, shop, whatever, and then we're there to offer our, services there. So hopefully it will be a good collaboration, and we'll see what we can do.
In years past, during the summer, they've had movies there on Wednesday night, I think, and it's usually been packed at that point in time, so that may be a good thing to talk with them about also.
All right. So quick update. The Trauma Service Area E, as you can see, there's a couple of spots that have lit up. Namera County, over 12% hospitalized. I'm not quite sure what is causing that, but it just got me a little interested. But overall, the TSAE has been in a downtrend, so the big picture looks still good. They're at 2.96%. 458 people in the hospital, 228 ICU beds available. Tarrant County has been doing okay, but our hospitalizations have been in an uptrend for about 2 weeks, slightly upticking. Not overly concerned about it. We're at 165 people in the hospital, but it is a trend change, so it kind of makes me wonder what's going on. 52 people in the ICU, that's about 15% of ICU capacity. Overall, though, big picture downtrend is intact. Just the micro trend over the last 2 weeks has been upwards.
Excuse me, Vinny, does Navarro County have a public health department?
I don't think so. They're under the region, DSHS region 2-3. So they're covered out of Arlington. The region's office is here in Tarrant.
Do they have a hospital?
They have hospitals? I think so. Yes, sir. So that's the hospitalization number. I believe they have a hospital.
There was
But
Baylor.
Baylor Hospital, I believe. Yes, sir.
Scott.
I'll double check. They might have one more.
From an epidemiological standpoint, we need to take a look and see what's going on down there.
Yes, sir. I'll consult with the regional office, and I'll look at some other things that are happening. Sometimes it's just available staffing that sometimes skews the numbers. You were familiar that it's staffed beds versus how many people are in the hospital, and the numbers kind of get skewed. So,
If you would go back to that slide.
Yes, sir.
There seems to be something happening
In that area.
in that quadrant down there.
That is correct.
Because those two changes in color there at Ellis and Kaufman connected to Navarro kind of indicates a trend
something
down off
happened, yes, sir.
in that geography
That is correct.
we ought to be looking at.
Absolutely. I will dig into it. I'll consult with the regional office. I believe all 3 of those counties don't have a health department, and they're under the regional office, so we'll check with them.
All right.
So here's one piece of good news that I was really waiting and hoping for a long time. Finally, on the positivity rate, we're broken below the 5%. We're at 4% and some change. So that is good news for Tarrant County. Couldn't be happier that we're finally heading down after a long plateau. And our hospitalizations are the only thing that are making me less happy, because this minor uptick, I'm just a little worried. What is causing that? You heard from the hospitals that some of these folks are in the younger age group. So that's just a little caution there. But overall, all the indicators are pointing down, so we're in a good downtrend and like to keep it there.
When does that mean we might go from moderate to low?
Sorry, I forgot to check. I know you asked that question before. I forgot to check the metrics. I will, and I'll let you know what percentage we change that at. I'll figure that out and let you know. It's not just that one indicator. It's the ability for having a rapid spread, and I need to just consult with the team, make sure everything's good, and then we will be looking to lower it. Yes, sir. Very clear picture on the epi curve, the one on the left. We've been in a flattened curve. So that's great news. And if you really try to zoom in on the area, it's actually a slow decline on cases, so that's great news. And the R naught is indicative that it's starting to slow down again. Below 1 is always good, but even further, slowing of the virus spread is great news. And then here are the U.S. trends. Very significant declines developing across the nation. So we're in a very good downward trend for the last 3 weeks. All of the states that, had surges that after, spring break, they are all getting their cases in a decline, hospitalizations are in a decline. So it's all good news developing for the U.S. as a whole. And as you can see, age groups are open, Pfizer vaccine is available. And I want to be very clear about the vaccine. It is in ample supply everywhere you turn. We just now need the interested folks to come out and get vaccinated. There's not a big, long wait anywhere, so let's just get folks vaccinated and be done with all these problems here. So what should we do? Things are looking good. Well, CDC did revise their mask guidance and choosing safer activities guidance. And people that are fully vaccinated can pretty much resume normal activities. They can do pretty much whatever they want because they're protected. Those that are not vaccinated might need to choose a little bit more carefully because not only they are at a risk of getting the illness, but they're also at a risk of spreading it to the others that are not protected. So those activity charts are there. These are just commonly occurring activities that we all participate in. So it's a good way to gauge your own risk when you're out there in the community, whether you should wear a mask. If it helps you make a decision about vaccinating, hey, so be it. But that's kind of the new message on fully vaccinated people can go back to normal. Update on the vaccine. 12 to 15-year-old age group is open, and like I said, there's not a big long wait. And we have multiple sites that are now offering late evening hours and weekend hours. So, we're giving ample options for parents who may not have the ability to take time off work, kids after school. We're trying to see them all as possible.
Now, would you talk a little bit about the conversations that you may have had with the public schools and talk a little bit about that and what decisions, if any, we've come to on that deal?
Yes, sir. So let me start with the biggest school district first, Fort Worth ISD. We had a good conversation with them. Inside the school district, they have multiple options. The biggest one that they're currently using is the Perone Pharmacy, who is doing in the school pop-up clinics. They were very particular about not disrupting study time, so they're doing it after hours. And Perone Pharmacy is doing the whole setup. The school is only needing to leave a custodian, so it's no overtime or any other issues for the school. That's going okay. They've done multiple of those and have promised to do several more. Fort Worth ISD also is talking to Walgreens, I believe, to have another option available. There was a request about doing a couple of different pop-up clinics, especially with this age group that opened. So we talked with the city of Fort Worth and MedStar. Eventually, Fort Worth is going to, do this vaccination drive with the ISD. The thought was that we would bring back the Farrington Field drive-through location. So as you can see, I had that planned on the chart. But late last night, a decision was made that they need to move it to Bob Boland because of weather-related concerns. ISD is familiar with that. Fort Worth's okay with it. So they will be doing, starting this weekend, I believe, May 22nd, a location at Bob Boland for this particular age group and their parents. And we're providing the vaccine to them. And then also, similarly, there's a request from Fort Worth ISD for a Diamond Hill Community Center area, that there's a school there. They want to have a separate pop-up event there as well. And I've talked to Fort Worth, and they're going to handle both. On the Arlington ISD side, I should have asked for an update. I forgot. But I believe they had their vaccination day yesterday. I just don't have the numbers handy to see what the show rate was. And then we've had conversations with several other school districts. So we're currently planning on working with Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD, Castleberry ISD, and Birdville ISD. Those are the 3 ISDs that are requesting clinics. We've had preliminary conversations with Mansfield ISD. They're sort of debating. So those are the ISDs. And then there are some private schools, Trinity Valley, Fort Worth Academy, and one other, I forget the name. MedStar is going to be helping us with that, and also with the Northwest ISD. So there's a lot of school-related discussions happening. Again, because schools are about to close down, they want to make sure they offer the opportunity. But several have said that general feel they have is that if parents want to bring the kids back in the summer and the school's closed, they'll be happy to reopen the facilities, let us host a clinic there, or parents can bring the kids to any one of our locations here. So this is the current schedule. The main highlight is that there's a lot of evening and weekend hours available. So if anybody has work or other life events get in the way, there's plenty of choices. On the vaccine coverage side, 1.2 million doses delivered in Tarrant County. About 28% of the county, or 592,000, have at least one dose. And 471,000, or 22% of the county, is fully vaccinated. So still a lot of work to go. Our goal is to get as many people who would like the vaccine, get them vaccinated. So it will continue on. As you're familiar, we've been getting some grants, and that is settle in and do the work over the long term. Those grants last a couple, 3 years. So this will continue on, maybe not in this iteration, but a slow go. Our clinics, the regular vaccine clinics, are now also offering COVID vaccine. And we're pretty much asking anybody who walks in, have they had their COVID vaccine, and we're offering that to them. Slow uptake, but it will eventually, work as well.
I had hoped again that at some point that the federal government might address the incentive, being able to give somebody an incentive for having gotten the vaccine, but that does not seem to be the case. And
so I did bring that up at a call directly with the CDC, and they sort of sidestepped the issue. They did give a few examples. Apparently, Ohio is issuing a sort of a lottery, $1 million to a certain number of people who get pulled out of the vaccinated pool. They're also offering scholarships to kids who may not be eligible for the $1 million. They get full rides to state universities. There's been some other examples of incentivization, but everybody clearly indicated that there are statutes that, people don't know what the implications are, but other places are trying different things. Somebody said there was somebody trying to think of which state or location it was, but they used their tax registration rolls. And based on that, if there's people vaccinated, they get pooled into a pool for incentives. Different things.
yeah.
So again, coverages for signups are improving, but signups overall have slowed down to a trickle. We did have a little uptake after the 12 to 15-year-old age group opened, but we're back down to a couple hundred people a day signing up anew for vaccinations. And then here's the final, update on the demographics. Slow improvements, but the numbers are definitely improving in every aspect. It's just going to be a long process from here on out. And then final slide is just the update of people who have come through us or through our network of partners and what we've been able to do with the.
And again, this is, when you say network of partners, you're talking about the other mega sites, you're not talking about the pharmaceutical.
Correct, yes, sir. So these are, so it's Arlington, Fort Worth, or THR, JPS, Baylor, who worked with us off of our list, and they've been reporting back to us what they've done. Because the big slide, the colorful slide that I show you, comes mostly from DSHS, and that includes everybody. That includes pharmacies. Let me get back there. So this slide, went too far. This slide here is full Tarrant County coverage, every private doctor office, pharmacies, everybody included. And this last slide here that I present is what is recorded in our database of any partner that may have worked with us.
So that's about 500,000, I think. Go back to that other slide.
So yes, sir, you're right. That one is 1.25 million, and we are at 723,000. Yes, sir. So about 500,000 others.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's all I have. If there's any question, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you.
What you got on West Nile, Benny, is it?
I know you were going to ask. So we've got, I think I mentioned 3 weeks ago, there was a mosquito trap that came out positive in the Crowley area. That's been really just the main highlight. Rains are helping because they wash away all the breeding areas for mosquitoes. So as long as the pattern stays with the rains, I think we're okay. But afterwards, when it gets hot and water accumulates, that's when the trouble starts.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now we're going to go and ask Ms. Camareno to come forward and give a report on the emergency rental assistance update. As Kristen comes forward, there was an article in the Star Telegram, I believe it was this weekend, and it was a very good article that talked about our program and the City of Fort Worth and the City of Arlington's program. So, Ms. Camareno.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. How are you?
Good morning, Kristen.
Good.
How are you?
Good, thank you. I do want to provide an update on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. This presentation will focus on emergency rental assistance funding specifically. I'll talk a little bit about the program that we have launched at Tarrant County using that funding, and also a little bit about the second round of funding that will come out of ARPA. Okay. So the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that we are running currently is utilizing funding from the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which passed in December 2020. That's an amount of $24,281,300. The American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA, March 2021, is providing us an additional $19 million, of which 40% was received by the county last week. So that's what's being called ERA Round 2. So ERA Round 1 we are using now. ERA Round 2 we've just begun to receive. There are a few differences in guidance between the two rounds of funding, and so I want to point out a few of those to you. While we haven't yet begun to use ERA Round 2, once we do, some of this will come into play, and we'll be working with the Auditor's Office to be sure that our policies and procedures encompass all of the requirements. Fortunately, we have already incorporated some of these things as they were allowed in Round 1. So ERA Round 2 provides 3 additional months of assistance. So once an applicant or a household has exhausted the full 15 months with ERA Round 2, if they still meet criteria and establish a documented need, we can provide an additional 3 months through ERA Round 2 funding. Additionally, the Round 2 has increased our admin cost allowance to 15%. That won't kick in until we start using those dollars, but it's something to note. 10% of ERA Round 2 award can be used for housing stability services. There is an exhaustive list in the guidance. I didn't include that here, but can provide information on another day. One of the things, though, is legal aid or legal fees that someone might incur because of trying to prevent or fight an eviction or any cost, court cost associated. I will be talking a little bit more with Mr. Manius in our office about some of these things, and we'll likely bring more information at a future date. Another difference is that it requires programs to offer assistance to renters if landlords choose not to participate. You'll remember that that's something we've already incorporated into our program, so that will not cause any change. It also requires programs to prohibit the eviction of renters for non-payment. Currently, landlords can't evict for non-payment during the period of assistance. ERA Round 2 strongly encourages prohibition of eviction for 30 to 90 days after the assistance period ends. So again, that's something that we'll discuss further and bring back. Requires programs to document prioritization of renters based on AMI and unemployment periods. We're already doing that.
You might tell them what AMI stands
for. Area median income. And I'll share some more statistics about that later in the presentation. So one of the tools that we implemented along with our emergency rental assistance program was a call center. That's something we saw a huge volume of calls in our first program and knew that that was a necessity this time. For the first 6 weeks of the program, you'll see there on the slide that the call volume has generally gone down. The average talk time is 3 minutes and 46 seconds, average hold time 9.5 seconds. So they are answering the calls very quickly, and we've received a lot of positive feedback about the call center. You'll see call types there, 3% hang up, 21% of calls, they're asking for their application status. That's something that we've trained the call center on, and they're able to go in and actually pull that information immediately. 46% of the calls are able to be answered by the frequently asked questions, the document that we've provided to the call center, and then 30% are escalated. Escalated calls are handled by our office, by our ERAP team. Those are calls, sometimes it's people who need help filling out an application. We're able to fill out an application on their behalf if they don't have access to a computer. Some of those calls are questions about maybe last year's program. It's just really any information that the call center isn't equipped to answer.
Kristen?
Yes, sir.
That increase in administrative costs that you referenced a slide or two ago, can that money be used for case managers in the JP courts when there is a eviction docket?
It can, but there's also a 10% for housing stability services that I believe could also be utilized for that. So it's something that I'll look into.
It just seems to me that it would be helpful if we had someone in those courts at the time an eviction docket is being heard who can try to intervene with landlord and tenant and get a deal struck.
Okay. I'll find out which portion of that funding could be used for that service. Okay, the other tool that we launched alongside the ERAP program is GetRentHelp.com. The article that Mr. Manias referenced at the top of the presentation does focus some on this and how it's facilitating assistance to people all over the county, not just in Tarrant County. It is working very well. I've included a couple of charts here. The first one shows you, the pie chart shows you how individuals are getting to GetRentHelp.com. So you'll see there that the largest percentage is 44%, and that's the Tarrant County website. So that's people going to tarrantcounty.com right on the front page, whether on mobile or desktop. You'll see emergency rental assistance, and so that's people who have clicked that. 31% are going directly to GetRentHelp.com. That's the number that we hope we'll start to see going up as our outreach efforts continue. And then the remainder is organic searches, other social media, referrals from other websites. Several cities have posted GetRentHelp.com. Some of your newsletters have the link, so that's what the other percentages is. The 4682 unique referrals, that's how many people have come through GetRentHelp.com and actually been pushed out to one of our sites. The renters ERAP and landlord ERAP, those are people who are being pushed to our site. So that's the Tarrant County ERAP site. The rest are either going to the City of Grand Prairie, the Tarrant County Homeless Coalition, cities of Arlington and Fort Worth, or other community resources.
So would other resources basically be everything else, everyone else?
It is, and actually we've collected those resources and put them in a single chart that is hosted on our website and on the community development page, and so it actually takes them to that page where all of the resources are listed. So if they don't fit the criteria for any of the other programs, they're sent there. And then you'll see that 2% are accessing by tablet, 66% are accessing it by mobile device, and 32% desktop. So I'll talk a little bit about outreach. This is not an exhaustive list of what we have done or what we will do, but I wanted to highlight a few of the things for you. So JP court coordination and landlord outreach we've talked about here in court before. That's something that Ms. Denton and the alternate dispute resolution team had a heavy hand in. I do want to point out, though, that although we focus on the Tarrant County program, we are also assisting Fort Worth and Arlington with that JP court coordination and facilitating some information sharing so that they can reach out to their landlords as well. We've worked with the Apartment Association of Tarrant County. We've done several Facebook Lives, teletown halls, and are willing to continue to do that should any of you want to host one. We have yard signs out. We've done direct email, direct mail through TAD to property owners, and then also some printed materials that we've distributed around the county. Going forward, we will create more printed collateral. You'll start to see more GetRentHelp.com, hopefully until you're tired of seeing it. So that's our goal, is to really get as many people aware of that website as possible. One facet of our outreach is paid outreach. We did this in 2020 with the CARES funded program. It was extremely successful, so we're utilizing some of those same techniques and strategies to reach people this year. You can see some of the information there. I won't read it all, but it launched on May 7th. This campaign will run for 2 months, at the end of which we'll reassess and maybe redirect or based on feedback and program metrics. Okay, so getting into some of the demographics of who is applying for our program, and this is the Tarrant County Emergency Rental Assistance Program. You'll see there that the top two reasons that people are applying is that either they've been laid off or their work hours have been reduced. That follows by a risk of infection and the need to care for dependents, and then other, you can read there some of the other reasons that are stated. This is where
when you say quarantine order, you mean people are being laid off because they had to go into quarantine?
No, sir. One of the options is that they've received an order to quarantine and therefore unable to report to work, which results in a loss of income. So the next slide shows you where people live, where our applicants live. So while our GetRentHelp.com does a great job filtering out Fort Worth and Arlington, because our landlords can go on and apply and list multiple tenants, sometimes landlords own properties in multiple cities, and so they are listing Fort Worth and Arlington. And you'll see there that Fort Worth has the largest number. What we do then is simply redirect them to the Fort Worth program. This chart will help us focus our outreach efforts, so those cities who we see less participation from, we're able to reach out to them directly.
This is designed for rental assistance. Is there anything that prevents this possibly from also being used for small grants?
Yes, this is strictly rental and utility assistance.
Okay, could we use the ARPA money for small grants?
For what?
For sick care, quarantine order, dependent care, infection risk.
We'll look into that and report back to you. And if there's any other specific things you're interested in, we'll be having those conversations. So.
Well, I guess, again, and this would be, I hope, in collaboration with the cities, I think what we're looking toward doing is finding vehicles to use this $881 million that help people stay afloat during this pandemic.
Right.
So these things here, any one of them could be ground or could result in the loss of income and or the loss of a job or whatever. And I know it's great from a rental assistance deal, but it might also be used to put food on the table.
Understood.
And things along that type of lines, immediate needs.
Sure.
And I know that's going to be much harder to maybe be able to exactly identify, but it's something I think we should look at.
Okay, we'll do that. So here's some more demographics on our applicants. You'll see their race and ethnicity charts. Non-Hispanic or Latino, 63%, Hispanic or Latino, 32%, and then 5% who refuse to answer, and that is their prerogative. You'll see there the race chart. I won't read all of them, but you can look at that. The average age of our applicants is 36. Our youngest is 20, oldest 79. 102 male and 318 female. So heavily skewed toward female. Keep in mind that is just the applicant, so they could be part of a larger household. Some more demographics for you. This is how our applicants fall into the area median income brackets. So you'll see that 65% of our applicants are 30% or less AMI. So we're seeing a very large percentage of people who, which correlates with the statistics I showed earlier, have completely lost their jobs or their wages were cut severely. So for their 2020 income, they're falling into that lowest bracket. We have had 1% over 80%. Those are then denied for the program, as 80% or lower is a federal requirement. The household size is something that really surprised us. We're seeing a large percentage of single individual households. So that's something that we didn't expect to see. That tells us that this pandemic hasn't discriminated, and there are a lot of single person households who have been affected just as families of 4 or 6 or larger. 59% of the applicants have not received an eviction notice. 41% have. I apologize, those blues are a little too close to differentiate there, but that's 59% have not received and 41% have. And then to date, this is upon approval of the claims addendum today, we will have provided 121 households with a little over $850,000. We continue to work very closely with the auditor's office. Her team has been extremely helpful. Our average time from application to payment is 3 weeks. I'm not sure that I can stress enough how big of a difference that is from last year and how big of a difference that's made for our landlords. So,
and thank you, Renee, for working on getting that time down.
And that's about $7,000 a household. So we've seen the difference in the guidance that Treasury's put out and making this a fairly flexible and long-running program. And so we're happy to see that it's working as intended. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have one statement, and this is great information. It's really helpful to be able to stand up a program on the front end and be able to know what type of data that we want to track and monitor. So I appreciate the thorough update. Also, I have a question particularly about the outreach.
Okay.
I know in the CRF program that we did a couple different radio programs with Dallas Vietnamese radio specifically. What are we doing in the Spanish-speaking community and the Vietnamese-speaking community?
Sure. So everything that we're putting out is translated into Spanish and Vietnamese. That's printed collateral, that's social media, digital media, and radio ads. So all of our radio and streaming audio advertisements have been translated into both Spanish and Vietnamese and are targeted through the consultant who we're using, Belmont. They are targeted at those stations and those streaming channels in those languages. We will be working with Dallas Vietnamese Radio to put out another Vietnamese interview and radio ad.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good job,
Okay.
Kristen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Your Honor, I believe that we have some audience participation forms. I know we have one call-in, and then we have probably 12 or 13 that are in 504. So when we get to the point of those individuals that are in 504, if you'll maybe give us 3 names at a time so we can get them, queue them up to come into court.
I think we're going to take about a 5-minute recess before we
Anyway.
You were fine, Kristen. Just kind of like my daughter. That's my middle daughter. She talks a lot too. I think it comes with a name.
Well, I'm not even going to go there. I'm moving on. Your Honor, if we go to the audience participation group, if those that are in person, if you will give us 3 names at a time, that way we can make sure that we can queue them up to come in.
Okay, I will give you 3 names. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to call on Kelly Burke, Carmen Swelskis, and Kelly Joel.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm blessed, sir. Good to meet you, Judge Whitley.
Good to meet you, sir.
And all the rest of the distinguished members of this board and in this courtroom. My name is Kelly Burke, as you already know, and I come standing before you as a concerned citizen of the city of Arlington, Texas. Yesterday, we sat outside of the mass vaccination site where the students were taken to be vaccinated. My concern is I have not seen any medical references that shows where these children 18 and under should be vaccinated. That would be, I guess, a question that I would be pointing towards Vinny. I'm not sure if he already left or not, because I know he was part of this plan that was rolled out. Second thing is our tax dollars were used to pay for this as well. So with the busing, bus drivers, food that was provided, and teachers and parents and things of that sort to ride the buses to go to this vaccination place. The other side of that is I'm not sure if that we had enough education that was being provided for parents and students to educate these mothers and parents of the side effects maybe, or even having these kids vaccinated in the first place, because all the research that has been coming out, even originally from the top of the government, there was no need for any kids to be vaccinated because we didn't have any severe cases for kids for corona. When we looked into the numbers, that we saw that there have been more deaths related to school bus driving accidents where kids died than it have total combined for the COVID-19. So as a concerned citizen of the city of Arlington, Texas, I think it's a big problem. And I think that we should create some kind of protocol to at least educate these parents on what they're doing with their children. I'm not trying to say that I want to stand in the way of somebody vaccinating their kid. I just believe that we should have enough resources available for parents and students as well, so that they can be knowledgeable of what they're doing. Because if they don't need it, then they don't need it. But if the parents want to get vaccinated, by all means, do whatever you want to do. But we're talking about children. And if a children's immune system is not the same as an adult's immune system, and if they don't need something, I just don't see the reason for us to fund it, number one, with our tax dollars, and I don't see the reason for us to do it. And so that's my main concern with being here today. And I would like to see something in the form of education and resources available for these parents and these students to be abreast on what's going on, and the side effects, the risks, and the factors of what they're doing.
When I've had a parent ask me, I've said to them, you trusted your child with a pediatrician for all of its life. Up until this point in time, I hope that they'll go to that pediatrician and not go to social media to try to figure out what they'll do. And I would say the same thing to you and your doctor. If you've got questions, you can go wherever you want to go to get the information. I hope that you've trusted your life thus far with a doctor, and you might use that doctor as opposed to going to some person who you've probably never met on the social media. Mr. Burke, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
Carmen? You might want to pull that down so that you can talk into the microphone.
I was wondering if I could play a recording of the doctors, many doctors that already have coming out talking about the effects of
You've
the
got
vaccine.
3 minutes. So
Yes,
you
sir.
can play all you want up to 3 minutes.
Reaction. Because these are the first mRNA vaccines ever used in humans, you would think that they would have first been tested and proven safe in published animal studies and have at least 2 years of human testing, which are routinely required for a vaccine. Instead, the COVID mRNA so-called vaccine was only tested on humans for a couple of months. Wouldn't it have been prudent to have a long-term human study before recommending mass vaccination of the entire population? Adverse effects are inevitable. In the first month of use, there were more than 40,000 documented adverse reactions in the United States, including thousands of cases of anaphylactic shock and serious neurological problems. Because less than 10% of adverse effects are routinely reported to the vaccination board, hundreds of thousands of incidences and damages from the injection have likely occurred. That is only in the first 30 days. As of February 14th, there were also 934 deaths of individuals who had received this experimental gene therapy so-called vaccine, including baseball great Hank Aaron. I know several individuals that took this vaccine, unbeknownst to me, that have died within 2 days. That's no coincidence. Even more worrisome are delayed and long-term adverse effects of this experimental gene therapy. The synthetic mRNA experimental gene therapy turns on the production of COVID-19 proteins, but it has no off switch. It just keeps on replicating, and the immune system keeps on mounting an immune response against it. That is why some researchers are concerned that it's going to provoke autoimmune reactions, setting you up for a lifetime of serious inflammatory disease. Another major concern is the possibility that COVID-19 experimental gene therapy can make infections even worse. There's a convincing argument that this experimental gene therapy may trigger an antibody-dependent enhancement reaction that increases the virus's ability to infect your cells. In other words, if you come down with a coronavirus infection in the future after receiving your experimental gene therapy injections, then you may have a much worse case than if you'd never had this therapy in the first place.
Thank you. Next is Kelly Joel. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Judge Whitley? It's
It
almost
is afternoon, you're right.
Yeah. I do agree with you about you should go to your pediatrician first. But then what gives you guys the right to use all these little pop-up places to push these vaccines, especially on our young children? Our young children, they don't know, first of all, emergency use authorization is only used if there's no preventative. I know for a fact my boyfriend got COVID. He used budesonide, ivermectin, and antibiotics. He got over it in 3 days. And there's a doctor in Dr. Bartley in Odessa. He has cured over 8,000 cases, no hospitalizations with that same combination. And I just don't believe our tax dollars should go to push in this vaccine. And I was there yesterday at Arlington ISD where y'all were pushing them, and I went in there just to say I wanted a paper. They weren't giving the paper out. The people had to ask for the paper on what the risks were, what the side effects were, and the parents and the children need to know what is in this and what's going to happen. And with the lottery and all that, I just don't understand that. Why are you having to offer free school? Why are you having to offer a lottery for something that is 99.9% curable? And it's been proven. And you can go on the vaccine adverse events reporting system. Only less than 1% has been reported. 4,057 deaths. 11,572 hospitalizations, 25,000 urgent care, over 32,000 office visits, 940 anaphylaxis, and that's only 1% that is reported. Let's say 20% has reported, 5 times that is 20,000 deaths. And you got rid of the SARS, the swine flu vaccine after 25 deaths. I don't understand this. I'm very concerned. I'm concerned about our kids, our people. I'm concerned about you guys if you've had the vaccine. It's very concerning. And you just can't push this on everybody. And people that don't even read what the risks are because they're trusting you guys, and you're even saying that you need to go to your physician. Yes, you go to your physician, but you don't let these little pop-up vaccine injections to these people that don't even know what's going on. You should have seen this little girl. She was so happy about getting her little vaccine, and she doesn't know what it's going to do in her pubescent years. She doesn't know what it's going to do to her reproductive system. This is very concerning. And I am praying for you guys that God fills you with the Holy Spirit and puts out the truth with all this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Awa Mason, Rick Scharfenberg, and Darren Swan, or Swain. Mr. Mason? Mr. Mason?
You ready, Mason? Let's see. How y'all doing today?
Great.
Good, how are you?
It's Ajua, by the way. So I'm going to start off by saying that it ain't about social media. This is about liberty, and this is about freedom, and this is about America and our Constitution. And I also want to add to that, I thought that bribery was against the law. So when you want to incentivize by giving out $50 incentives to take this jab, I thought that was against the law. Can somebody answer that question for me?
Well, that's why we didn't do it.
Okay. Well, why was it presented in the first place if it's against the law in the first place?
Well, because in the
that's
first
my
place,
that's my
we
main
didn't
concern.
know that it was against the law.
Oh, you didn't know it was against the law. Okay. All right. So what happened yesterday in Arlington at the AISD Athletic Center? It was disturbing. It was disgusting, and it was demonic. Why would anybody approve this type of behavior? Making a school holiday out of allowing kids to receive this non-FDA approved experimental drug? Because that's exactly what this is. It's an experiment. We're researching on each other. We are the research if we take this. The school systems need to stay out of medical procedures, period. We know for a fact that this experimental drug has led to injury, and unfortunately, it has led to death. We know this. For there to be such a push, I have a list of questions. The school system, will they be responsible for citizens injured by this experimental drug? The makers of this drug, will they be held responsible for citizens injured by this experimental drug? The hospitals, clinics, medical facilities, will they be held responsible for citizens injured by this experimental drug? Private businesses, employers that are now starting to require this to be a part of employment so that people can feed their family. Will they be held responsible for employees that are injured by this experimental drug? The state of Texas, will they be held responsible for Texans injured by this experimental drug? The government, will they be held responsible for the American people being injured by this experimental drug? Those are my questions, and those are millions of American people's citizens' questions. Those are our questions. Who can answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Mason, or Mrs. Mason.
Thank you.
Rick Scharfenberg, followed by Darren Swain, followed by Devin Pipes. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Rick Scharfenberg, and I'm a resident of Grapevine, Texas. And I am, like a lot of people, kind of concerned about the vaccines. The vaccines are authorized through the emergency use authorization, but like the previous speaker said, these vaccines are experimental. They're not like other vaccines that have gone through human clinical trials to determine their efficacy and their safety. So I'm very concerned about that. Also, some of the newer vaccines have mRNA technologies that we don't know what the long-term effects of those type of vaccines can have on the human body. The other thing is, I see that there's a big push in getting these vaccines to younger children, 18 to 12 years old, and these young people have very strong immune systems, and I believe that funding or incentivizing activities to target these people may not be the best use of the taxpayers' funds. My wife had COVID, and she was able to get over it through some natural means. I think there's also a lot of therapeutics that are available to people in case they do get it. And I'm also concerned that I believe in informed consent, but I believe that a lot of people have a lot of misinformation if they get their information in the media. And that's where I think a lot of people are getting it, that they really don't understand the actual risk. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming out today. Darren Swain, followed by Devin Pipes, followed by Sherry Perry. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My question is, if y'all believe that vaccination works good, why do you continue to wear a mask if you really believe it works? It's an experimental drug that changes your DNA and your genes, and it never has been tested properly, and it's going out to the public too early. I wish I would have taken more time to study it before it got out to everybody, because now what's happening is more and more people are dying from the vaccination. There's been an increase of 46% the last 3 months on people dying in the United States. And then there's now 189 injuries that were reported. And most of these aren't even really accurate numbers because they don't have any way of properly getting the numbers to a database. But this is according to CDC and VAERS. So unfortunately, people are getting this vaccination, and there possibly could be more and more people dying from it and more injuries. And another problem with the vaccinations is that if you get the vaccination, it could cause people like me that didn't get the vaccination to get sick. You can shed that to you and make a lot of people sick. So it could be a very serious problem. We need to start budgeting now to have money to protect people from being sick. The next thing I want to discuss is, why are we giving money to people to stay home? It affects our businesses. I'm a small business owner, and if they get paid to stay home, it's going to hurt the small businesses that need to survive and create income themselves. We need to get back on our feet and get rid of all this social distancing and staying home. We need to get back to business. We're much better than we used to be since we've gotten a lot of that away, and we're starting to get back to a normal economy if we go back to our ways we did in the past. The other thing I want to talk about is the numbers that show to be positive on the COVID test. They're not really accurate numbers. They've already proven those are not good figures to use. Although the numbers are way down, I think he said there was 25 positive patients reporting, which is really significantly lower. So I think the time to be worried about COVID is over with now. We need to get back to regular lives, get rid of the vaccination until you can prove that it really does something. And there are reasons why the vaccinations aren't correct, because even the CDC, doctors, nurses, and scientists, only 50% of the people took the vaccination. So if they really believe it works, why are they not taking it? And that's from the CDC. So you need to do more investigations on everything, because y'all have an oath of office to hold and protect the people for the state of Texas and the county. Thank you.
Mr. Swain.
Thank you.
Mr. Pipes.
Hello.
Morning.
Yeah.
So my main concern with this is that it's on school property with the vaccine pop-up sites and that they're busing the children. My relative was the very first county superintendent of public schools in Tarrant County. And the school system's job since it was founded was education, not vaccination. So I think it's just appropriate. I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, and on school property or during school is not the time and place for the vaccine. I think anybody should get it that wants it. You know, you have a right to try, but it is an experimental vaccine, and we don't know the long-term side effects of this. And these young kids have their whole lives ahead of them, and that's just a decision they'll have to make with their parents and their doctors, but it shouldn't be forced upon them in the schools. And that's my main concern, is just to keep it out of the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You know, Judge, speaking of schools and vaccinations, those of us who are old enough can remember back in the 50s when Dr. Salk developed polio vaccine. In my area, which was Houston, all of the vaccines were given at the schools. You went to the school on a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and took your little sugar cube. So.
And I don't believe the schools are forcing anybody. The parents are agreeing. They signed the consent form. I don't believe Arlington forced one child to get the vaccine over their parents' objection.
Right, I don't think they are, but it would just, I think, be better if the parents were to arrange to do it elsewhere. That way it doesn't seem that way even. And I know there's plenty of mass vaccine sites, and they've been extending the hours, and I think that's great for whoever wants it. I just don't think it should be at the schools. And I don't know whether the polio vaccine was experimental at the time or not, but.
Well, it was, you know, we'd had people dying of polio for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Before they got the vaccine.
Yeah.
I remember both the polio
I mean, your
vaccines, the
dad was
Salk
right in the middle of it.
and the Sabin oral vaccine, which is the one on the sugar cube, and they were both done through the schools.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry, followed by Blanca, followed by Ashley.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Mr. Perry.
So, yeah, I haven't been here in a while, and like I said, my first speech here was like July of last year, and then I would come back again week after week after week after week, and I saw that nothing was changing. I saw that everything was moving forward. So, yeah, sure, in January I went away, and now here we are, and now they're trying to push this garbage on the children. Okay, and it is garbage, and I can say that because I've done my own research. I've looked on social media to find a lot of this stuff out, which you can do too. But again, okay. Well, here's the thing. The issue is, you know, I don't need to come in with a lot of data, all right? I did that. I did that all last year. We're past data, okay? This is not about information or logic, because this isn't logical. What we're doing right now is not logical if you really are honest with yourself. It's not logical, okay? Unless you understand what the real agenda is that I talked about in this courtroom, because people don't want to talk about it, because people don't want to even believe that it's possible. But yes, there is a global depopulation agenda. There is a sterilization agenda. You can call it many things. You can call it a New World Order or whatever you want to call it. But that is a fact. We have a 0.001% who are basically driving the behavior of the other 99.9%. Okay? They do not care about you. They are satanic, okay? They worship Satan, whatever that is, okay? But they are certainly not Christians, and they certainly don't care about America, okay? This is an agenda to kill a lot of people, like the vaccine is doing. So again, if you understand what the agenda is, actually everything we're doing does make sense, because the vaccine is killing people, as it's intended to do. The vaccine is making people sterile, as it's intended to do. As it's intended to do. The vaccine, and again, I'm using the word vaccine again, I got to catch myself. It's not a vaccine, okay? Because the technology is not how vaccines work. That is a lie. So again, it is doing what it's intended to do, okay? And it's going to make people sick. And here's the issue. Like I said, this is not about facts. This is about here. Okay, what do you know in here, in your heart? What do you know? I think a lot of people listening to this know. They know the truth, but they pretend. They are phony and they are fake. And we need to stop sitting around and acting like, oh, everything's fine. Okay, as long as I just play along, I'll be fine. No, you won't be fine. Okay, a lot of us won't be fine. No one will be fine. Okay, there's going to be, once this, you look forward in about maybe 2 or 3 years from now, okay, all these folks who think that they're okay by going along with this, they won't be okay. They'll be either sick, they might be dead, or people close to them will be sick or dead, and they will be responsible for that. And that's your karma. And that's what we're dealing with. So.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Blanca.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us and considering and hopefully taking some positive action on some of the things that you've heard today and you're about to hear. I just got a report this morning on the BL. It's, I guess, a newspaper or medical newspaper in Europe and the United States via the internet. 20,000 cases. Europe reports nearly 20,000 cases of eye disorders after vaccination against the CCP virus. The CCP virus is actually the COVID virus. AstraZeneca, Pfizer, they just giving it a new names. Maybe they can trick us. It's the Chinese Communist Party virus. And that's what we are in right now. The plot of the Chinese Communist New World Order to destroy the freedoms that we used to enjoy because we're losing them daily. We have to remember that God hates the spilling of innocent blood, the shedding of innocent blood. That is one of the things that God hates. These children are innocent. These children are pure. They trust that their parents and they trust that the school are going to look after them. When a teacher would tell us something, even as a child, I remember that was like God said it because we trusted in them. When our parents said something, that was it. We may have rebelled for a minute, but ultimately we knew that Mama was right. I should have not worn them shoes. But yet here we are, the very people that we're supposed to be, the children are supposed to trust and take care of our children, are putting them in harm's way, the parents and the schools. And letters were sent out via email, not even during the mail, and they were sent out on Tuesday. I found out Tuesday night, some of the parents sent it to me. On Tuesday, we found out the parents were emailed a letter saying that basically when I interviewed some of the parents in Arlington, they were under the impression that it was mandatory. That's how they worded it, because they're playing psych. It's a psych operation. And they're saying, okay, the teacher's saying that children have to have it. They're providing the buses. They're providing the school site. They're providing all of this. And the vaccine, it must be good. It must be part of the school. When did our medical procedures become a part of our educational system? I say this has to stop. We must remember Tuskegee Project. It wasn't that long ago. A 6-month project became a 40-year, and the only reason they stopped killing our black men was because they got busted and they got exposed, and the darkness was made manifest with the light of the truth. And there were people that were speaking out against the inhumanity, crimes against humanity, against our black brothers and sisters, because they were destroying the families by injecting them with syphilis and then not treating them properly. And it's the same CDC that's in charge right now of this so-called COVID experimental gene-modifying procedure. I say no, we must stop.
Thank you, Blanca.
Thank you. God bless you.
Next is Ashley Caldwell, followed by Chris, followed by Luis.
Ashley's going to come sit by me.
Okay. Natalie, were you going to? Okay. Then there's Michelle, she's a comment. There's Jody.
I think Michelle has one box, honestly, because she's back there waiting. Although she actually wants to speak.
Okay. So you're saying Chris and Luis are the ones that are the comments?
Correct. And then Michelle and Jody are the ones.
Okay. Ashley.
Yes, my name is Ashley Caldwell, and I am a parent of 5 kids in Arlington Independent School District. And I'm really concerned about the vaccines being promoted through the schools. I think it's good for people to have the option to get them if they really want them and if they've done their research and know what they're choosing to do. What concerned me when I got the email was the fact that it didn't include any information that I thought was very relevant for people who are choosing to give this to their children. Because a lot of people do just take the advice of people that they consider to be more knowledgeable than they are. And a lot of parents consider the teachers and the school board to be a good source of information for what's good about their children. They neglected to mention that it is emergency use authorization only, that it is not currently FDA approved. It is still in clinical trials until 2023. That's a long time away, and that's all of the vaccine options we have available. They did not do the animal studies before this time. They ran the ones they did concurrently, which means we won't have any of that data until we also have the data on how it's affecting humans. And people are giving this to their children with no long-term data. And we know from history and previous vaccine attempts that there can be negative outcomes from some of these. One example was the swine flu vaccine that injured a lot of people, including a lot of children. And I personally know adults who have gotten this one and had serious adverse reactions. My uncle had an anaphylactic reaction more than 24 hours later at home and would have died if he hadn't made it to the hospital. And I know someone else who died suddenly and unexpectedly within like 10 days of getting theirs, who was young and otherwise healthy. They have, and it is an mRNA vaccine, which is new. The only previous ones they have tried for that were the original SARS vaccines. And in the animal trials with that, they got the same results they're talking about getting now. They got good antibodies, everything appeared to be doing well. And then much later into the study, when their immune systems were challenged by encountering the actual virus, they exhibited what they called pathogenic priming, and their immune systems overreacted, and almost all of the animals who had received it got severely ill or died. And the results of those were not to proceed in humans or to proceed with caution with mRNA vaccines in humans. In addition to that, I've seen some recent numbers that indicate that the majority of our current COVID hospitalizations are people who have received one or both vaccines, which is concerning.
Thank you, Ashley. Next is Michelle.
Thank you.
It says she does not wish to address the court. That was the box that she checked, so. Jody, you're on deck, so.
She's on her way around, and Michelle doesn't want to speak, because she didn't have any comments.
Good morning, or afternoon.
The collateral damage of the recent unlawful mask orders and now the threat of loss of more freedoms due to this jab has been exponential, causing division between family members and even lifelong friends. The willful and intentional harm to those that cannot wear this device, like myself, or those that are against the injection has caused loss of wages and the inability to buy essential items just to survive. The absolute worst of all is what has been done to children of all ages. The mask, the isolation, the segregation in their classrooms, divided by a piece of plastic, and the narrative that now they are responsible for the death of grandma and grandpa if they don't get this jab. This is a harmful injection with ingredients that most educated people wouldn't want in their worst enemy's pet. I know I wouldn't. The live exercise from the Agenda 21 playbook has not surprised any of us that knew it was coming. In fact, my speech given on September 2020 here predicted forced vaccines and a V card for employment in some schools. What I didn't foresee, though, was how easily it would be to manipulate parents into marching their children in to be used as an experiment. Ironically, the infamous NIH shared this historical information on their own site, and I'll quote, "Children as guinea pigs. Experimentation involving children is not a new phenomenon. Children have been used as research subjects in a diverse set of experiments, including the trials of new vaccines in efforts to understand normal pediatric anatomy and physiology. For more than a century, critics of medical research have called attention to the fact that children and other vulnerable populations, such as pregnant women, prisoners, and the mentally ill, have too often served as the unwitting and unwilling subjects of medical experiments." End quote. You said that these parents are consenting, but a lot of these parents have no clue. When I got the so-called insert at Arlington yesterday, it doesn't give a description of what those words mean to people. So if you get people that don't even speak English and they're handed the wrong insert, they don't know what they're having injected into their child. We luckily got 9 cars to turn around. So we saved probably 16 children. So I'm proud of that fact that we did that and we saved these people. But one father was there and said, "Thank God that you guys were out here." He saved 3 of his children that day. So hopefully we can continue to do that. But when you say they're consenting, I would beg to differ, because coercive control, fraud, deception, and manipulation should not be it's misconstrued as consent. It's actually deceived consent. It's deceived consent. It's immoral and a crime against humanity. Our children in the entire county, we deserve better, and all these children deserve transparency.
Thank you, Jody. I have a comment from Chris Hoare. He says, "Do not wish to have children wearing masks in class and should not have children get the shot and entice them to do it." And then from Lewis. Who? Okay. Vaccines, executive order masks, COVID masks on kids. I'm taking it he doesn't approve of that. The last audience participation we have is Mr. Robert Bucher, and I will call him at this time.
Bucher.
Robert, this is Judge Whitley. It's your turn for 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. I'm calling in regards to the kids getting the vaccine. I mean, with very minimal research to any at all research, just makes no sense to do this to even uneducated parents that may not know. We got to do a whole lot better about this. You know, when we're spending too much money out of the county's money to focus on COVID, when we're very well aware of COVID and everything that it entails at this point in time. I mean, spending money on, COVID, using HIV, using the Ryan White HIV, I mean, just funneling money through things consistently, spending $150,000 on doing events, to get people to take the vaccine. We're at the point where everybody that has took it and can take it and want to take it. I mean, we're getting stragglers here and there, but we don't need to spend a whole bunch of money doing all that. It just makes no sense to me. I mean, reallocating funds and stuff like that. I just don't understand, why we haven't started saying, you know what, Governor Abbott's scaling back, he's taking things back, he's going back this way or that way, taking back the unemployment and all that. So, I mean, when do we start following suit? Because that's the one thing he's doing right. Or are we just going to sit here and say, as long as we can milk this, we're going to milk it? And putting people's lives at risk for what? For a vaccine that's not even tested. It's just emergency operated, and that's according to the Mayo Clinic, who makes this vaccine, who makes the ingredients. We have rights and freedoms, and a lot of y'all miss this. We don't have to take this medical vaccine that y'all say is a vaccine. It's really a placebo at best, and that's just being honest with you. At what point in time do y'all start looking at us, the people, and saying, you know what, if they don't want to take it, they have the personal freedoms. They can AMA everything. I can refuse medical on everything under the sun. Period. And a lot of people aren't aware that as long as we keep this disaster declaration going, even on a federal level, guess what happens? We have a loan repayment. There is 5 chapters in the 418 code. People need to start reading, and y'all need to start reading yourself. So $262 million, guess what? We're going to fill that.
1 minute.
And that's all I have to say on that one.
All right.
Thank y'all. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Robert. That completes our audience participation for today. Mr. Manius, do you have anything else under your item?
Not under mine, Your Honor. I just would advise the court that we are going to go into closed session today for just a short while.
So do you want to do that before I go to Mr. Tidwell?
No, I just wanted to make sure that the court was aware of that.
Ms. Tidwell, he's trying to get us to go into close without you.
Well,
I can only wait.
so I have 2 items for the court's consideration this morning. The first is a release of $12 million in collateral, as outlined in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And no, we have not received any of the funds yet, so. The second item is to ask the court to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the period ended January of 2021.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn is missing. I'll move that we receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're going to come back to those other 2 items. Vinnie, come on down.
Public Health requesting approval to submit an application in response to the CDC's request for application for grant funding. And this is to support community health workers in COVID-19 response and building resilient communities. Sounds very familiar to what we did last time. The difference is this is more focusing upstream on chronic diseases that led to COVID disparities. So addressing heart disease, blood pressure, all those type of things.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus, you have an interlocal agreement.
I do. I have an interlocal agreement with the city of Euless, 5 projects. Like to move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today?
Yes. I move to reappoint Jay Jackson to the Tarrant County Building Line Adjustment Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I kind of have an idea that Ange might be here in place of Tina. So come on down.
Good.
We are on item 2
Okay.
of your Human Resources section.
All right, so item 2, we're requesting an extension of project employment for the district clerk's office. This employee is working on the scanning project that we've discussed in the past. So the 1-year extension would be through June 2nd, 2022. Impact to the district court. Records Technology Fund would be about $52,000. Excuse me.
The project without end. Move approval.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Excuse me, a little tickle here. Our last item is a waiver of terminal benefits for the ME's office. This is for their Chief of Morgue and Laboratory Services position. The incumbent left county service on April 30th, had 400 hours at the time of vacation. They're asking for a waiver for 240 hours. Excuse me. The net cost being about $9,000 to the general fund.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Are there any more appointments? You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Remaining briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, Mr. Schaffner has provided you with a memorandum dealing with activities of the legislature. Just a few things to point out. We are now 13 days away from sine die of the legislature. And so, as everyone knows, the last couple of weeks are pretty hectic. The last week is really going to be reserved mainly for budgetary activities, because that is the one piece of legislation that the legislature is mandated to pass. In Mr. Schaffner's memo, he did provide you with information that the comptroller has revised the biannual revenue estimates, and it looks like the state is receiving more money than they had originally anticipated, a little over almost $4.8 billion more over the biennium. Also, the various items such as House Bill 3, this deals with the powers of the governor as relates to pandemics. The elections-related bill is one that we're watching very closely. It looks like it's going to conference committee, and we'll just need to wait to see what happens out of conference. Everything else, the opioid legislation, they are at a point where that we believe the bill is in fairly good shape. There's some efforts to modify it one more time, but if it remains as it is today, then the county should be in pretty good shape on opioid. Members of the court, I'll be more than happy to attempt to answer any questions you might have related to this memo or anything else dealing with the legislature.
Has the ledge done anything to try to strengthen the utility grid?
Commissioner, I don't have that information. We can find that out.
There's some conversation that they're going to talk about that again this week, and that there may be an attempt to bring the ceiling of 9,000 per kilowatt hour in case of an emergency down to 2,000 or 3,000. That will do nothing to, winterize or do anything else from that standpoint. But who knows? I wouldn't hold my breath, I guess, is the end result of what I'm saying. And the Senate Bill 7 for the elections is important, and we may need to try to call our people and say, don't destroy something that's working. Don't. Because that's certainly what they're looking toward doing. Senate Bill 10 is, I think, headed for conference committee. That's the one that is the taxpayer-funded lobbyist. And again, the survey that everybody keeps referring to, the question was designed for what state reforms need to be had. And the state, who is not included in their bill, spent over $40 million a year lobbying Washington, mostly in the transportation area and in the area of health and human services. So if there's are there any other questions of Mr. Manius or regarding the ledge? And with that, we will recess our open meeting and proceed to having returned from our closed session, we will now address the following matters.
So if I might say that we've just been notified that the governor has issued GA 36, an executive order dealing with the coronavirus and various health and safety measures. And if the court would like to take any action at this time, it would be appropriate under item 1 under the administrator's office.
Would you describe the governor's order?
Yes. Basically what the governor's order has said.
Get by your microphone so I can hear you.
I will. Debbie, let me get my order here. What the governor's order basically said is that effective this coming Friday, that local government cannot require the mandatory wearing of masks.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion or submit a motion in reference to the governor's order. In reference to Governor Abbott's executive order today, it is requested that the Commissioners Court suspend the enforcement of Tarrant County's health and safety policy for Tarrant County buildings and facilities until further notice by the Commissioners Court.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
Just that the governor is full of it.
Well, and I would add, obviously, I'm voting for us to follow the law, but I'm not supportive of these measures. There's been no indication that our community is in a healthy enough position for us to do away with one of the tools that we have available to us to mitigate COVID-19.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. With
That's all we have, Your Honor.
stand adjourned.